Hey everyone, Angus here. I wanted to make a video on how I use higher highs in my trading and how I can then export data out of higher highs and import it into TradingView in terms of a watch list for stocks. So I typically like to look across all the exchanges that I can trade. I use interactive brokers, which means that I can trade pretty much the worldwide market, and I can if we get time, we'll add probably another 10 exchanges to this, so you'll be able to truly trade globally. And so the typical parameters that I use is 1 year, 100%. Price can be anything, because if I set it like if I'm trading the US or Australia, I like to have it between say $10 and $100. I've always got that funny philosophy where I think that if a stock's at, let's say, $20, there's a better chance of it doubling from $20 to $40 than if a stock's, let's say, $200 trying to get to $300. It's not necessarily true. It's more a function of market cap and how many shares are on offer, but it's just that sort of little psychology where I think there's a lot of retail traders in the market, and if a stock's around $10 to $20, they think it's a bargain and might go up. So anyway, I've got this thing up here called My Favorites. If I click on My Favorites, you can see I've only got one stock in there, which is MDA. And the way that this favorites page works is when you add a stock, it basically looks at the time or the price that it was when you added it. It has the last price. It says what the RSI is and how it's performed over the different periods of time as per the drop down. And you can see here when you first add a stock, all this stuff here will be blank. It'll be 0. And what it's saying is I've had this stock on my watch list for 12 days. And over those 12 days, I've made $39 or 4% roughly. And it's making roughly 0.3% a day. And so the way that I've designed this, or I intend to use this, is so that I can actually see which stocks have more momentum by looking at this percent average per day. That's the main thing that I'm sort of interested in looking at. And so what I'll do is I'm going to go back to the home page, and let's have a look for some other stocks that I just might want to track and add to my watch list and keep an eye on. So often what I'll do is I'll have the RSI, so it's set between 40 and 60, so I can see stocks that are at a better value. But just for now, I'm going to see what's around. So you can see Orla's, traveling really nicely. Banking Financial Services in Italy. Don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's up 143%. So let's go add that to favourites. GNP Australia, so that's had a bit of a pullback. So it'd be interesting if that started to resume its run again. So that's got a 9 out of 10 on our AI score. This one's been going quite well. Touchstone In Vitro Diagnostics, 8 out of 10, so that's not too bad. Sand's having a bit of a pullback at the moment, 9 out of 10. So let's just go and add the top couple of stocks. So that one, Seagate, and I think it was Seagate and Western Digital. They've both been having just a fantastic run. So let's add that, because that could be a good opportunity to get in there. But see how, well, you might not be able to see on my browser, but it's $256 was at its high, and it's now back to, let's say, $225. So it'd be interesting if that turned around and ran again once it gets back to better value. So I'd like to keep an eye on him. AD Works, advertising and marketing. This one here's had a bit of a pullback, and so see how this one is 2105 yen, and so that's probably, I don't know, I've got no idea to be honest, but it could be $30 Australian for all I know. 2105 yen to, let's say, USD. So that's a $13 stock. So that's that's certainly of interest. So let's add him. I like these stocks where they've gone up, had a bit of a dip, might be going back up again. Security services in Japan, man guarding, don't know. 4013 Japan, construction, specialising in civil engineering and building, so let's tick him. And so I've got a few ticked now, so I'm going to go back up to my favourites up here. And so you can see that I'll now be able to keep an eye on them, and they'll just sort of sit there, and I can visit this favourites page, and these are the stocks that I'm interested in trading potentially. And so I can just keep an eye on these, and you can see here how it's got all these ones that are blank. This one here must be in my cache somewhere, because it's showing that I've had it for 12 days in the cache. And so the other ones, as the days progress, they'll start to fill in the data, and you can then sort by percent average per day, and you can see which ones are sort of growing more aggressively. So if I open up that one, have a look at him. Yeah, so that's pretty aggressive. So he's up quite high, but see how his RSI is well into that red zone. So I like the look of his revenue, but it's a bit too red for me at this stage. So that one I'd want to wait until it pulled back quite a way. This is our little AI analysis. Below it's got all the news for that particular stock, and you'll see back here on the this page here, like it's also got the company news for most of these stocks. I'm going to get rid of that company news because it's a pain. It doesn't really add much value. Here you're better off going to the individual stocks and having a look at what the news is. If you want to look at the news is, it gives me a bit more room to put more things on this page. Like I'll start to have an AI analysis performed on your favourites list, and at some stage we'll do the same for stocks that you've actually got, where you can enter in your buy price, and your whatever you want to add in, but it'll basically say same thing, for the stocks that you're currently holding. Here's how many days you've held them for, and here's how they're performing. So that'll be quite cool. But the purpose of this video is to export the list. You can download the table, but let's go export list. That'll create a text file called higher highs, one.txt. It's just always called higher highs. And so if I go to EOL, I can go to add a new watch list. So I'll go that one. I will go create a new list, and I'll call it, actually I don't even need to do that. Like at this point, all I need to do is import it. So I'm just going to go file, import list, and I'll find higher highs, which is there. That's the new one that I've got. I'm going to go open, and you can see it's populated it. So every now and again there's a bit of a disconnect between what I call the stock name and what the exchange is, and so you might just need to keep an eye sometimes just to make sure. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's have a look here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's imported all those stocks. And so just double check that when it adds them, it has added the right stock, the stock that you want to add. I've got my SuperTrail turned on. I've got it set to 16% because this is for stock that I'm looking at, which is EOL. I actually hold this one. I think I'm up around 40% on it, which is pretty good. But you can see like that 16% trail has been quite good from when it began its run. If I zoom in, the reason why I've got it set to 16% is, see how sometimes here it would have got stopped out if I had set it any tighter, but because it's running quite well here now, what I'd actually do is I'd probably tighten that, because it's sort of at the end, it's quite expensive. So what I'll do is I'm going to tighten it and see how tight I can get it. So that's around 11%, that's 10%, so I want to give it just a little bit more room, so I'm going to say 11%, and so I'm going to change that to say 11%. One of the limitations of TradingView is it won't save the trail value between the different stocks. So if I go to STX and change the trail value to something else, and it won't remember it, and that's something I'm going to try and build into the Higher Highs website at some stage. I'm going to switch across to the TradingView charts, and I'll have it so that I can try and have the SuperTrail automatically displayed. And all this is, the SuperTrail is just simply a way of when you place a trade and you want to have a trailing stop, so you don't have to constantly monitor it. The whole idea is we trade this stock and we stay in the trade until the bend in the end. So as soon as this thing breaks down through like an 11% type area, then we know there's been a fairly fundamental shift in its momentum. And so that's what I use the SuperTrail for, to get out. So if I have a look through these ones here now, so STX, so you can see STX has had a pretty good run at 11%, but let's increase it slightly and let's have a look. So you can see here on this particular stock, 12% was probably a good trailing stop to have. And I like stops, 12% trail, and I like stocks where the trail is very tight, like anything less than 15%, where it trends nice and steadily. That's up 163% if you let it run as a 12% trail. And every stock has its own wiggle. Like, it's surprising how a stock will keep that same sort of rhythm all the way through. If I'd bought it somewhere around here, I might have had a tighter stop. I might have got stopped out here somewhere with that one dipped there. But, you know, 12% is pretty good. So then I'm going to go to SAN, have a quick look at SAN. Right, so SAN I could probably go even tighter. It's got stopped out there, but, you know, here it's been pretty good. So let's double click and see what this one looks like. So 8's too tight, 9% is pretty good. So this particular stock here, I'd happily trade that at about a 9% trail. So 9% trail. And I put these on these comments because if that's currently set to 9%, but if I go back up to here, it's lost my 12%. It's now still got that stuck on 9%, and I can't fix that. Like it's just a limitation with TradingView. So GNP, so 9% is too tight, so let's double click. So that's pretty good. So I would have just got stopped out up here. And so let's go OK, and let's record this as 12%. And so these trades I'm not in at the moment. It's 12% trail. But what I'll do is see how, you know, your RSI is coming down, your MACD is starting to come down. What I'll typically do is I'll wait until I get a signal, you know, that it might have finished going down, and, you know, that's often by the RSI start to head up, or the MACD will start to, you know, make, you know, sort of light red, you know, pinkish sort of tables and go up. So I'd always want to wait a couple of days to make sure that the trend has reversed. But I would have got stopped out here, and, you know, the SuperTrail will alert me when it, you know, it's back in play. And if I didn't want to sit here and monitor it, I can literally go right click, add alert on the SuperTrail, and tell me when the SuperTrail is becoming bullish. And so I can go create, that's all I need to do. And I've now got an alert in theory. So that's Ava, so that didn't work. So let me try again, see what I did wrong. So this one here, that's not what I want. Right click, add alert on SuperTrail. So SuperTrail becoming bullish, same as chart, open and alert, create. So I do not know why that isn't working. That's quite interesting. Add alert on SuperTrail. I've got notifications 3. So it's going to send an email and do a whole bunch of stuff, so I don't know why that alert isn't working. I don't know. Anyway, something for me to worry about later, but I certainly should have been able to add an alert so when it's turning bullish. So something for me to have a look into. I think I'm an idiot. It has worked. So see how I was on the wrong tab up here, so my fault, bit of a dummy. So these are all now the alerts, so you can see it's just going to go nuts. So let me delete them all. Let me go delete all, delete all. Delete. 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 Let's try again. So just to show you that it does work. So I'm on my alerts now and not my log. So I'm on proper alerts. So right click, add alert on SuperTrail. SuperTrail becoming bullish, same as charts. So that's that 1 day time period. If you wanted to sort of get early warning, you might set it to say 4 hours or something. You know, just to get a little bit of an early warning against the rest of the market perhaps. But I'm very happy to have it on a 1 day. And I can go create, and then you can see there the alert's now there and it's active, so thank goodness for that. I don't have to fix anything, which is always good news. So if I go back to my list, so I won't bore you and go through all these, but that's roughly how I used higher highs and the SuperTrail and TradingView to keep an eye on what I want to trade next. And I'll especially look at the extended hours. So when the market's about to open in the US, I've got the extended hours turned on, and that just basically gives me a look, 4 hours ahead of the market opening as to what these stocks are going to be doing when the market does open. I'll often take my entry in the pre-market, so I get a bit better deal once I have a bit of an understanding of the direction. So this XTX one, let's just have a very quick look at him. I know I said I wouldn't bore you, but so he's at 12%. He's had a big dip, and I do like these. So he's been way overextended. He's been very expensive stock, and he's now gone from somewhere up here down to here. So he's had a 15% pullback, which is what I like, and so he'll definitely be one on my better watch list. So if I go 1 year, so you can see he's up 112%, and that's after a 25% dip, so he's certainly been a pretty good stock to hold. And again, that's Seagate. Think of all the data storage requirements and stuff, Nvidia's taken off because of all the requirements for AI, and the thing that people don't sort of look at is all the storage that's required to go with it. If I have a look at Western Digital just while I'm here, I think Western Digital is a similar story. Yeah, see that? So that's quite fascinating. So Western Digital's probably had a better run, arguably, so I might hit Alt-W and see how I've got Western Digital added. And so because I want to keep a closer eye on these, I could basically flag them. See how I can put a little green flag next to them. So they're now both green, and so if I want to keep an eye on, the ones that are, I'm actively looking at, somewhere in here, I used to be able to go, show me all the green ones. I do not know, as always. Open this, see up here green. So I can do it that way. Right, so these are the ones that I've basically got a bit of an eye on at the moment. And so these ones here I can keep a close eye on. I could also go back to higher highs, my list, and I could go right click add section. And so I'll put that up the top up here, and I'll make a new section, add section, and I'll say, I'll call this one watching, and I'll call this one buying. I'm not really buying them, I shouldn't call it buying. And then I'll call this one consider maybe. And so I'll move him down there. And so I've got buying. There shouldn't be anything in buying because I'm not really buying anything. Did I rename it? Geez, I'm a bit off my game. So let's go add section. Let's go rename that to, let's say, holding. If I buy one of these, I'll put into my holding thing. These ones that I want to watch, I'm going to get rid of these ones and put them down to consider. And then these ones that I'm considering buying, I'm going to put buying. I'm going to drag up to here. And so anyway, so that's not just how to add a watch list to TradingView. It's a whole bunch of other stuff thrown in that may or may not help you. But at the moment, these ones are quite overextended, and theoretically, so this one here for the same period is up 193. This one here for the same period is up 166. I don't think that data requirements are going anywhere soon. Let's have a very, again, I keep trying to end this video, but I keep thinking of stuff. So let's have a quick look at their financials. I don't know what that says. Why is that there? Let's click on X and hope it doesn't kill anything. So if I go down here, have a look at their annual. So the sales are growing a little bit, but they're nowhere near what they were. Quarterly, just a short-term view. So the sales are up a little bit, but again, nothing spectacular. Let's see what they think the value might be. So they think it's overvalued on Seagate. which might be, part of the reason for the pullback. People might have been taking a bit of profit off. Let's have a look at this one. So annual and quarterly, quarterly's up, but it's still nowhere near as good as earlier on in the year. Neither is that one. And then this one's overvalued by about 15%. So this one's $119 stock, $225 stock. Is Western Digital worth the same amount of money as Seagate? Who knows? But if I had to take a punt on which one I'll buy, I don't know if it's useful to have both. I think I'd probably take a punt on Western Digital, just in terms of looking at the chart. Hasn't had as big a pullback on the MACD. They're all both a bit like that. But anyway, so who knows, but I'll certainly keep an eye on those two and keep an eye on these other ones in this list. And if you're a momentum trader or you like trading the trend until the trend ends, hopefully these are a couple of tools that might be of interest and of use. Higher highs, we're putting more and more AI type stuff into it, so it's pretty cool. All these are, these will all go out and connect to the individual AIs. The reason why we've done it with 4 is so that we don't get hallucination across one of them, so that Gemini doesn't come back and say this stock's brilliant, it's a ripper. We want to sort of have all these AIs, do their own independent analysis without looking at what each other's done, and then come back and give an overall score that might just help influence, whether it's a stock you want to enter or not. Anyway, hope that is useful. Thank you very much for listening as always, and I shall end this video.